Hey, welcome to Non-Perishable Goods Podcast. And we are here today to discuss some of Alec's favorite things. So I'll let you go on and take that.
Yeah. Um, I think after last week's show, the last 2 weeks of shows, I really wanted to touch on, just our culture as far as hip hop and how it's kind of delved into the mainstream. Everything is hip hop now, with a lot of things. Whether it's your dress, your appearance, your haircuts, your shoes. There's so many different topics we can hit on, and one of the topics that I really wanted to talk about was just how amazing the mind of some of our kind of underground artists are. Some of them are a little bit more mainstream than others. When you think about Childish Gambino, I don't necessarily think you think about the music anymore. You think about shows like Atlanta and now Mr. and Mrs. Smith. And then I'm really big on the LA hip hop scene. I've loved Vince Staples, Dom Kennedy, Nipsey,
Mm.
and guys like that for a very long time. Jay Stone, guys like that, and just that movement out there, just kind
Because
of
I'm,
more late to the music.
yeah, like I wasn't familiar with Vince Staples at all. I mean, one of my good friends actually lives in Long Beach and she would bring him up. And I think it was because the tie that he had with Mac Miller.
Yeah, yeah.
And
He's really close with a lot of those kind of dudes. And for me, like all my friends always laugh because they're like, "Oh, it's the LA hip hop guy," like. And again, I think it's because my two friends live out in SoCal,
right.
and they're my hip hop, group thread that we have, and we're really up on a lot of things, and I just like it because it does remind me of more mid '90s, late '90s,
That's true.
um, that kind of nostalgic sound and feel and lyricism and beats and things like that. And, guys like Casey Veggies who don't
Mm.
get a lot of notoriety on mainstream, but they do have very, in my opinion, they have very good musical senses and great, catalogs.
Yeah, I feel like you could almost throw Larry June in there as
For
well.
sure. For
You know what I
sure.
mean? Even though
Him,
he's NorCal, but
yeah, him and Jay Worthy and those guys like that, I really do enjoy. That's for me. That's I call it riding music. It's my driving music. It's sometimes my gym playlist, but a lot of times I would rather listen to that than most mainstream new stuff.
are you more into, so you're more into lyrics. You're more
I
into
love
like,
lyrics. Yeah, the lyrics of things. When you get a person that can be over a really good beat and you can still understand the gist of what they're trying to get, a good storyteller, there's nothing like it in my opinion. I've always gravitated to guys like Jay-Z and Nas because of their storytelling, because of just the lyricism and how they can construct things. Like one of my favorite artists who is, I always say he's like a halfway point of being really famous and really good, and then he can be really underground, is like Fabulous. Like I love
mm,
all of Fabulous's mixtapes. I think that they're well constructed. You can tell the difference, and just like when we talked about the record industry, it's like, if he could put this out, I think he would have even more fans, on his soul tape mixtapes, things like that, his Friday freestyles. And he's always been that kind of dude that I've really enjoyed on that type of platform or that type of genre of what he does. So like, um, I'm really drawn into guys like that, and Childish Gambino and a lot of these artists like Vince Staples, Casey Veggies, those guys, they were all very much heavily listened to in my play deck, on their mixtapes, not necessarily their studio albums. So I enjoy listening to the creativity that they have when they have more of a freedom to kind of say and do what they want as opposed to trying to make a studio hit.
yeah. Now, do they still have mixtapes per se?
Yeah.
I'm sure they do. Like, what's the active websites to,
So all the active websites that I used are gone now. Hip Hop
right?
DM
Like,
and
mm,
I'm trying to remember the other one, but I think the one thing I can get from it is because I follow all of them, and so like they usually post on their Apple Music. A lot more mixtapes are being on, I only use Apple. I know a lot of people use Spotify and things like that. I do have Spotify for older mixtapes that if I don't have them in my library and if I want to listen to like Lil Wayne's, all his dedications are on Spotify and I just, I don't pay for the service. I just let it play and I have to listen to the advertisement here and there, whatever.
Right.
But
Yeah.
like if I want that feel of it, then I can do that. Kind of the cool thing I've done on my Apple Music is I've been able to curate my artists that I like. So like it just takes time sometimes, but I would rather spend the time curating my playlist. Like 'cause I have my own radio station on there, but it's curated to what I listen to. And it's kind of crazy how the algorithm of that works because there are days where like let's say I just go into Apple Music and I want to listen to, 70s funk or, some older stuff, some Isley Brothers, just, some melodic 70s, 80s R&B kind of thing. And then the next 15 songs are from that one song. Or if I'm thinking about, hey, I want to listen to Dom Kennedy today, then it's going to give me my whole playlist of, all my LA guys, Larry June, those types of artists that are more kind of lumped together, which I think, our music platforms do a good job of that. You just have to
Yeah.
do a little work. I think a lot of people sometimes get lazy and just use other people's playlists and things like that. And my music taste
And
is
I
maybe
don't like them. I don't like a lot of the default playlists. They're just kind
no,
of boring.
I mean, I think Apple's done a really good job strategically of, and this is Jimmy Iovine again, right? Back to our first recorded podcast about that is I think they have the right people in place to give us the music that we're looking for. If we're looking for a specific genre and things
Yeah,
like
for
that.
sure.
There's nothing like it because I felt like the way we grew up with music. Um, we were used to making our own mixtapes anyway. So we grew up in the boombox era, having to press play and record at the same time, and making sure we got the songs in its entirety, making sure that we had things that we liked on our CDs or our mixtapes and things of
Yeah,
that nature.
that was
So
like the
I,
original mixtape.
yeah, so I think that now having it at our disposal and our fingertips at such an easier clip has made it, I get to enjoy my music a lot more because it's what I want, and I don't have to really worry about, something interjecting that playlist because I can move it off or I can put it back on or whatever it may be, and
Yeah.
really wanted to dive into, these shows because I feel like these shows are very much they're labeled satire because they have a lot of innuendos. They make you think. I think there's so much genius within them.
Hmm.
Um, and I think that they are starting to catch more fire, which is good, like and people are starting to, you know, get a grasp or a hold on our culture a little bit more through these shows. And I just feel like the genius of Vince Staples and the genius of a Donald Glover. Um, this is kind of a show I wanted to do, kind of give them their flowers, whether they see it or not, just giving them their flowers on. I'm not a critic of being a hater on that kind of thing or anything of that nature. Don't believe in hating on, creativity. But they've done such a phenomenal job with what they
Yeah.
have.
There's a lot of mixed reviews, and a lot of people are making comparisons between the two shows, but I don't think they're so similar in nature. I mean, they are similar just because they're both rappers that kind of went into this lane of film
Mhm.
or of a series, and it's good. I mean, it's they're creative. Like like you were saying, that people do get a lot of different opportunities, or more rappers may get opportunities, but the ones that are getting the light are very creative. Like I could almost want to see one from Tyler the Creator. Like I think he would do an amazing series,
And he
just
has,
because.
he has the YouTube, that they've done things on, and I've viewed that, and I'm not really on his level as far as their creativity. I mean, he's put out a ton of people. Like I listen to his group, right? Like the whole
Odd Future.
group from the internet to Earl Sweatshirt, who I really love. Should have named him earlier on, but Frank Ocean himself. I like their music. Some of the things I'm not too privied on, some of the fashion sense and things like that, and a lot of people are, but it's not my potential cup of tea or whatever you
Yeah.
want to label it. But I do think that Donald Glover really took advantage in a time where we needed it. When Atlanta first dropped, I remember posting about it. I was so intrigued with, we're going to get something that we need as a culture for hip hop. I feel like they do such a good job, and because I want to say this now before I forget about it, I think they do a good job of giving the right odes to certain artists. Like, in the first season of Atlanta, he brought in the Migos, and it was such a weird episode. Like, they were kind of killers or whatever, and they were doing things different. They spoke differently. Like, they were super southern, like, but if you didn't know who the Migos were, you didn't know that they were making a feature cameo in this episode. And just even the other night when I was watching Mr. and Mrs. Smith, I think in episode 3, they're vibing out with, I'm not gonna give away the episodes, but with another couple, and they played a clip song, you know, right around Shining. And if you're not a hip hop head, you're not gonna know this song. You're gonna hear Pusha T, you're gonna hear Malice, but just the innuendo of putting it in that particular scene and then kind of throwing off the other couple, and where the other couple starts talking about Eminem, but he's like, nah, that's the clips. Like, and it's more up my alley because that's who I listen to.
Yeah. A- And I think that's what's so amazing about Vince Staples and Atlanta is that they're showing that. They're giving us our culture on screen.
Yeah.
And if you're immersed in the culture, then you know what's happening. You're not gonna miss anything. You're just gonna be like, oh, that's so cool. Or even, with Atlanta and Vince Staples, Vince being from Long Beach and Donald being from Georgia, you see the different locations and places. And even like with Insecure, like it was based in LA.
Insecure is
So
one of my favorite episodes. I almost wore the sweatshirt today. I have a sweatshirt from We Got Y'all,
oh
and
wow.
I got
Yeah.
it in the first season when they dropped all the merch. I got a T-shirt and a sweatshirt. Issa Rae, like, we have to give her flowers on that show. That
Yeah.
was probably one of the best female Black driven entertainment. I was glued every Sunday, couldn't miss it. It was just must see TV every
Yeah.
season, every episode.
Yeah. Because we related to it and
For sure.
we saw the locations in Leimert Park, we saw the locations in Inglewood, and we're like, oh, I was there, I went to a party there, I was at that venue.
And I
So it's very
frequented a lot of
personal for
times in
us.
LA, and I've had a lot of really good friends that still are out in the South, and in that area, and watching their growth being down south, just from their own accord, right, in their own industries, and just how much they've stayed in tuned with the culture of hip hop and clothing and film and music. It always inspires me to know more about it, and to see it like flourish and to be accepted, right? Like watching Issa be accepted to who she is. And I'm sad that, really all good things come to an end kind of deal. I would still tune in if they brought it back. It's like I
Did
want
you?
I want her grown up now.
Yeah, hopefully it comes back. But did you ever get into Rap Shit, her
Yeah,
series?
I've watched all. There's two seasons now. Um,
Yeah.
that one's a little rough for me personally. I felt like the storyline's a little rushed. Um, they could have done some different things with it. That's where I like the flower passing is coming to, like, Vince Staples. It's such a short series. Like every episode's like less than 25 minutes.
But he was able to convey a lot of ideas, even
Oh,
though it
for
was
sure.
through, even though they were shorts, they conveyed a lot of different ideas. And it was like, oh, he's
Yeah.
really smart. Because he even
Yeah.
wrote it. Like that's
Yeah,
what,
he wrote it, and like the one episode that I really liked was the bank episode. Just the failure to obtain the loan. He comes out of the office, and Rick Ross is sitting in this platinum plush couch, and drinking champagne, and he's like, well, you got to step your chips up, you got to step your game up, you got to step your thinking up. They're not going to just give you money. And then the bank is being held, for ransom, and there's, and he knows the robbers, that are robbing the
Right.
bank, and
Right.
they're
Right.
holding him to a real high standard because he's got his hood pass, right? But
Right.
he's also trying to go as legit as possible with his money and diversify and start his own business and things of that nature. And he had his business plan. And me being a business owner, I know those feelings of, trying to obtain more capital and putting yourself out there on kind of a vine that you don't know if they're going to accept it or not, and
Yeah. And in his case, he was totally disregarded. And I think a lot of people who may suffer from like imposter syndrome, they feel that,
Mhm.
when going into those type of spaces or environments, and just the power dynamics there, which was really interesting to me how he conveyed that in such a short
And the
exchange.
creativity part of being a diverse Black man in today's world, right? Like, and I hold myself to that standard. I feel like I'm him. I'm Donald Glover. I'm these guys that can eloquently be in any type of room. I could be in a boardroom. I could be on a street corner. I can hold myself in any of these types of genres or realms or situational pieces, and I can navigate through that. That's why I feel like it's such a unique blend of how I feel on a daily basis is being conveyed on a big screen. And
Mhm.
they are too going through some of the same identity crisis and like you said, imposter syndrome feelings. Sometimes with certain friends, especially growing up, I'm too white for all the Black kids, or I'm too Black for all the white kids. And so there's really no fitting in. I feel like this generation now is way more acceptable about who we are as individuals than we were when we were coming up in the mid 90s, late 90s, and
Yeah.
trying to find ourselves, in cliques and things of that nature. I feel like there's more of a blend and more of an acceptance of just who you are in today's world, which is phenomenal. And you can't, you're no longer afraid of the masses and who you are, right? And I think that that's really cool, to
Yeah.
see being
Yeah,
brought to.
no, that's an interesting point. Like I could definitely see that we are able to be more of an individual, or being completely ourselves. Like this generation, even in the workplace, I feel like they are a little bit more acceptable. Like you'll see people with tattoos on their
Mhm.
face or, you know,
Yeah.
like that's an extreme example, but
Things that were
I can see
taboo
that.
at one point are no longer taboo
Like
into.
blue hair or,
Yeah.
like that would be a no-no
Yeah.
growing up in the 90s. But now that's true. That's a really good point.
So I just like how he touches on certain things. Like with Atlanta, there was a lot of episodes that were what probably the masses wanted. And then I felt like he had more episodes that made you think. And that's what I loved about the show.
Yeah,
Made
that's
you
true.
think in a deeper um, thought process in how you navigate through issues or what kind of issues you have. There's so many episodes. I wish I could just pinpoint a few, but
The
towards the end,
Teddy,
yeah,
that was the weirdest one for me.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
didn't know that was him.
yeah. No, oh, the old white dude, yeah,
Yeah, what's his name, Teddy? Or
yeah. Yeah, I think it was Teddy. That was a
okay.
weird episode, and it made you think about certain things, and I thought the genius was is that he's touching on things that like guys like Eddie Murphy were groundbreaking with, with not dressing up in a dress per se, but changing your entire identity on camera. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
Eddie Murphy's probably the greatest at it, right? Like he's probably the greatest to ever do that, where he's playing roles that, an old
Hmm.
Jewish guy in Coming to America, an old Asian guy in Norbit, it's just, and he's playing them to a part where it's like,
Believable. Like,
yeah, if you don't know that that's Eddie Murphy, you're just like, that's a funny ass dude right there. Like, that's a funny skit. And then when you find out, like, I remember when I found out that that Jewish dude was Eddie Murphy when I was younger, I was,
in the
wow.
barbershop, the guy in the barbershop, yeah, the boxing scene. Yeah, that was pretty iconic.
Yeah, and it's those types of things are I think what transcend art and entertainment and allow people to go outside of their comfort zone of just a normal movie or a normal comedy or a normal satire type piece that a lot of these dudes are doing. So I just think like that's the cool part about art, right? Is it's to the eye of the beholder, it's to the creator, and these guys are putting themselves out there for criticism and out there for people to judge. But at the end of the day, I know that they're super comfortable with the messages that they're giving us.
Yeah,
We need those
exactly.
messages.
Yeah, because they are such creatives, but they're just using a different form of media to express their experience or what they want to give
Sure.
us, you know?
All day, all day,
So
all
it's
day.
like if you listen to their albums, then they're still kind of conveying the same type of messages, but now they're just, dabbling in the film industry, and it's probably making them more money for sure.
In a way, yeah, for sure. I mean, I hope their pocketbooks are fat and laced up on it. Vince Staples actually had an interview that I sent to you last week that really blew my mind. And he was like, there was not one joke that was written in
Oh,
the script. And when you really break that down, it's like, wow, there were some really funny parts in this 6-part series, some really funny scenes that
yeah.
were just scenes that we've probably experienced with our family. Like my favorite episode of the whole thing was the family reunion. And
Mm-hmm.
ever been to a family reunion? You know, barbecuing while black is what my dad calls it. Um,
You got the smoke
yeah,
everywhere.
the amount of emotions. There's going to be drama. There's just so much to
Yeah, the
take in.
disagreements over nothing that are like small, but it's probably something deeper that's been going on for years. And,
To capture all of it in 26 and a half minutes was like, that is cinematic genius to me, right? Like that is just creativity at its finest. Watching how mad his mom is and how the girlfriend, was kind of clapping back at the mom. She wasn't afraid of his mom. Like she was the
right.
only one not afraid to tell the mom her
And you
thought,
need,
her
yeah,
truth.
yeah, and you need people like that to just stand up to that bully or whatever to try to help them. And she did. They kind of like bonded towards the
Yeah.
end, you
And then
know?
ended up siding with her during the fight, right? So it was like I thought that that was just a really cool innuendo to um me being a black man bringing anybody I'm dating or married or engaged to, whatever it may have been, right, to the cookout or to the family dinner, and kind of getting that role. um Sorry, he's a
So he's
mess.
cute. I was like, hey, he wants to talk.
As soon as this thing hit go, he's just like, what are you doing? Like, you're
Like,
not paying
what is
attention to me. I'm like, bro, you don't ever pay attention to me throughout the day, so that's
that's
enough
hecka
about
funny.
the day job. But I thought he did a good job of representing how the woman feels when she's going to an event with, maybe a more popular. I see it in my eyes, right? Like more of you're kind of like, I don't want to say the family heirloom, but like you command certain things. And I know what I do and I know who I am. And I know that, my friends always tease me like you should run for mayor because you damn near know everybody and you're kind of involved in a lot of different things. And so that really resonated with me while watching it. It was like, okay, so, how do these women feel when they come, or how have they felt in the past if they're with me and they have to go to a family function? Like, let's tap into the mindset of what they were going through or what they may have felt. Because my real mom, Carol, she's a handful. So I saw a
Mhm.
lot of my real mom in his mom.
Mhm.
She speaks her mind and she's very outgoing and just bout it in a sense, right? Like
Yeah.
she's the feared one within the family. She's the one who calls everybody out and does this types of things. And it's like, well, how do you handle that? So, like I said,
Yeah.
it's comedic genius. It's creativity genius. It's one of those things that it's just like, wow, like this dude,
Yeah.
both of these guys really get it.
Yeah. Now, who did you think Uncle James was? The USD uncle who was barbecuing?
Hmm.
Who do you think he was emulating? Do you have a
OJ.
yeah, okay.
It
Yeah.
was OJ.
Because
He had the white Bronco and everything. And
exactly.
but you got to remember, in a lot of black families, and this just being black, right? Like in being a part of the culture. Um, and this is where it resonated with me. Like my dad ran track at USC,
Mm.
that also kind of like cross waves. Oh, here he goes. Hold on one second. Enzo, you can't get down, bud, please.
His name's Enzo?
Yeah,
Like Enzo Angelini or
yeah.
Enzo what?
Enzo Ferrari.
Oh, Enzo Ferrari. Okay.
Yeah,
I was
Enzo.
like, I love Enzo shoes back
Yeah.
in the day.
I'm not that fashion sensed.
Uh,
I'm fashion, but I'm not to that level yet. But you got me on that one. Um, I saw in that episode, it made me really feel at home. Like that could be my family reunion. That could be our family get together,
yeah,
you know.
it was crazy. It was funny. Yeah, everybody has like the rich auntie or the family that went to college, the prestigious school, and
Yeah.
but it was
And
just
every
funny.
family has that. Every family has that.
Every
That I
family.
mean that
It's
I know.
like how we were talking about the other day, the different classes within a family, and
And
like
I think that's where some of our cultural breakdowns go into, and where it's like even in today's world where we're breaking a lot of social norms and a lot of generational curses, really goes towards, right? Like it's that feeling like I Vince put himself right where his uncle used to be and how he's the guy.
mhm.
Every family has at least two or three
Yeah,
that
because
are the ones that are supposed to make it, or the guy that was supposed to be, heavy popular, making money, or the college athlete, the pro athlete, all of those types of things.
or even like the black militant uncle. Everybody has those too. Like
But
the
I
uncles
always
at
say
the table.
everybody always has an Uncle Junebug in their family, the kind of the wild card black sheep of the family.
Yeah. So it was very spot on.
Yeah,
And even the mac and cheese reference, like that's such a big responsibility in the
well,
black
for
family.
sure. In any
And and so
cookout.
she's over here trying to find out who else made some mac and cheese,
She was hot. She was
Yeah.
so mad. She was hot. And
Like
and
they
and
did them dirty.
yeah.
Even
And
with the t-shirts, even with the t-shirts thing. Like
oh yeah,
that kind of
the color on the t-shirts and another thread, right? So they had a whole separate group chat
it's
to
like,
kind
yeah, yeah, it's like, yeah, she's a hothead, but I felt like her family was kind of pushing her buttons a little bit, you know? You already know she's a hothead, so why wouldn't you put her in the group chat but things like that in families happen. There's a lot of miscommunication.
oh, for sure. Well, there's a lot of miscommunication because things don't get communicated in a proper fashion. So I feel like that's
Or
something.
on purpose.
Oh, for sure, on purpose. We know that part, right? Like you and I both know that part. A lot of things are done on purpose to perpetuate drama and conflict, but more or less, like a lot of things I can take away from it is that if you're an open communicator, if you're being transparent with your feelings, and that's another thing about the stigma of our culture as a whole, right? Is you know it's now okay to go to therapy. It's now okay to talk about your feelings, not even from a female perspective, but from a male perspective. That's again, like I know we get into these conversations on our podcast, and there's times where I think we're both free flowing through our pre-production or what we want to discuss, but that's another thing we have to discuss is like just the mental health side of how um not being able to communicate effectively to one another, and where we hold a lot of things in as opposed to letting them out, and being able to communicate without feeling um less than, because that's hard to do. And I know that from personal experience. In 2020 I went back into therapy, and it's been an ongoing thing weekly, and it's
Mhm.
been the biggest help outside of my pastor and the church stuff that I do and attend and try to do with God, but never knew I needed it that much,
Mm.
until you come to a point where it's like, okay.
So what does therapy, in your opinion, do for people? Like what's because I hear different things. Like they're not there to really give you advice, are they? Or are they just there to like listen to
Depends who
you?
you
Like,
go to. It depends who you go to. For me, when I started in 2020, I had two therapists. I had a female and a male. The female really gave me insight throughout my breakup about what the woman was feeling,
mm,
whether there was a transgression, um, you know, lack thereof communication, a lot of imposter syndrome was going on through that time because I think as you are courting someone, right, you tend to be a little different than what you are with your boys.
Mm.
And so the authenticity of who you are is a lot is a lot of times skewed. And then probably after the 90-day marker, right? It's when you start realizing who this person really is. And if that person wasn't who they were in the first 90 days, now you're having to get to learn a whole nother person. And through all of that, I've gained the wisdom and knowledge of at least my question and my questions to my therapist have been is like through marriage or through a relationship, you have to take the good and the bad, but you have to understand that that person's going to change yearly, not necessarily daily, but yearly. And they're going to go through things. They're going to go through highs. They're going to go through lows. And again, we go back to these shows like Insecure, like Atlanta, like the Vince Staples show. There's a ton of them, out there now. But I feel like they hit on a lot of these topics, where people grow apart, and it's hard. I feel like it's harder nowadays to be with a partner for 20 years as opposed to it was 30 years ago, 20 years ago when we were younger. I give kudos to friends that I have or, long-term acquaintances, I should say, because, that we're friends, but we're not like everyday friends because we're older now.
You
But
grow. Yeah, that's
it's
the biggest
crazy that I
thing.
have at least 5 friends that I grew up with that are still with their high school sweethearts. So it's like, how do you do it? And
That's
I
my parents. They're high school sweethearts, 50 years in, and yeah, it's been turbulent, but
yeah, and
you,
I
you,
mean, I look at my dad and my stepmom, they've been together for 35 years. And it's like, whoa, like the one thing I think the secret to their success has been is they're friends, they're best friends. They're best friends and they've never been the lovey-dovey couple, they don't show a lot of PDA, but they still take time every Saturday to go to the movies or go out to eat. And they still, my dad still dates my stepmom, and I call her my mom, but he still dates her. And so it's like those are really bucking generational curses on what we see as love or what we see as relationships or just even relations when it pertains to you and I as friends and my guy friends, my girlfriends, and what boundaries do we have, and are things messy, are things clear and concise. I feel like this opens up so many different discussions that if you're emotionally mature enough to handle those discussions, you should have them. That's what I've really gotten out of the therapy part. And then to answer the second part of your question, I think having two separate therapists
mm,
was really good for me. Because on the male side, and pardon my French here, he was more like, get your shit together. You know,
telling you what
you,
it is.
it's not all about you. You have to do the work and you have to do this and this, almost like a coach. So it was good for me because being a former player and being a coach and doing athletics and baseball all these years, and that's my profession. Sometimes you need motivation. Sometimes you need that kick in the ass. And when you're at the head of an organization and you're leading young men and their parents and navigating them through all of these journeys, who do you have to turn to help lead your journey? Because
Hmm.
every day it's a different challenge. Every week it's a different task, and every year you have to reflect and see how you got better at it. So
Yeah, and that's why I asked because we should normalize what therapy is. Because I hear a lot of people say, "Oh, I'm going to a therapist. I have a therapist," but what is it exactly? Like, I think people need to know what's happening and knowing that it's
the
not
safe
that
space.
deep or that crazy or that scary.
It's
Just
not. It's only what your mind is going to tell it to be, right? Like it's a safe space in a way
right.
that I can convey something to my therapist, knowing it's not going to hinder my relationship with my therapist,
True.
right? So if you look at it as this is my safe hour or hour and a half, like with the girl Lucretia that I had, she's from the East Coast and it was all on Zoom. we're an hour and a half, with my male therapist here in town. Um, he actually works out of a church. And so it was what I needed at the time. So it was more biblically laced,
Hmm.
moralistically laced to kind of get my shit together. And he was tying in the word with reality. And I needed that. And so for someone like me that, had that with my own father, there's a stigma there having these kind of conversations with your dad or your mom or your auntie or your uncle or even a cousin or an older brother. Like I'm the oldest of five, so I don't have an older brother that I can reach out, or an older sister I can reach out to and say, "Hey, I need help with this," or that. But it also just made me, in my opinion, become a better older big brother, because I am the example to my younger siblings.
Yeah, and they probably come to you for advice,
Always.
So it's like they always say, who heals the healers, and it's like if you're in that place, who's going to help you? Like if you're in the position of leadership, who's going to lead you,
And I've been lucky to have, a circle of best friends, in my opinion, that do that.
No, that's important.
But
That's
it's
so
hard
important.
to share. Let's put
Everything.
it's hard to share your insecurities with the people that you're surrounded by the most.
Because they might throw it back in your face or they might use it against
None of
you
my
or
dudes are like that. I will say that they
that's good.
all of them, from Cam, Leo to Charles to Daryl to Jermai. Like those are my dudes, Dyron. Those are my guys. I'm lucky enough to have EJ. These guys don't judge,
That's
which is
good.
great. And I think that that's where the scarcity of it all is, right? Like that's where the apprehension comes from, is being judged, and nobody wants to be judged. Everybody wants to be heralded in somebody's eye as a champion, or that dude who's got his shit together all the time. And I'll be honest with you, I don't always have my shit together. I try my hardest to, as a black man in this world, to be as organized as possible.
That's good.
And I don't like being blindsided. I don't think anybody does. So I try to keep everything at the forefront and not in the rear view. I want it in my front view, not my rear view. And anything that comes in that's turbulent, well, okay, how can I learn from it? And I think like these shows, as satire as they are, right? And some people don't understand that they're spins off of our culture. There is a spin off of dressing a certain way, talking a certain way, being in certain predicaments or situations that they bring to the forefront that really do help our coping mechanisms. And I think a lot of people in today's world don't know how to cope with adversity or handle
Yeah.
adversity.
And I think that's why they do. Like Vince Staples, I didn't know he was so gang related, but he was born into that life basically. And I think a lot of people gravitate to people just want to be feel belong, be
They
belong
want
to
to
something.
see, right? So like when you're, and I don't know this, but I know this from outside looking in or having people, acquaintances in the past that have that kind of lifestyle, right? Like we talked about it last week where, if I come into the home and everybody's always in chaos, how do you think I'm going to live my life? I'm going to live
Yeah.
my life in chaos. And that's what I feel comfortable with living my life in, because that's all I know. So when we say kids that are products of their environment, that's the truth, and I think like
And he showed that. Vince Staples showed that in this whole series. He showed that.
let's just even go back to Boys in the Hood,
Mm,
that showcased us reality, whether wherever you lived, if you were in a black neighborhood predominantly, or, in that kind of cultural environment, that's what you experienced. You saw those types of things. And so for it to come to light on the big screen, and I can watch that movie 100 times fold, and I still pick up something new in it. You know, um, the last time I watched it was a couple of months ago, and I just am amazed at how smart John Singleton and those writers and
yeah.
producers were with using Lawrence Fishburne as Furious Styles. And what we're seeing now with gentrification and the rising in our neighborhoods that are, kids and people are being depleted out of their once formed communities, and there's no sense of community. So they're going to bring in all these new things and all these new hipster type places and shops and coffee and food. And Sacramento is experiencing that right now. We are
Yeah.
going probably one of the greatest social evolutions in just our city right now. And I don't know if a lot of people realize that, with the arena going up, with everything on K Street
The,
changing.
the tech center, the health center, like they're putting so many things out in the Thomas. I think it's good. I think it's good for Sacramento.
It's great. I just read a
Yeah.
thing that we're like the 12th best food place
Right. I
in
saw
the,
that too. Yeah.
and I know that because I'm a foodie, and I frequent a lot of really good restaurants out here and a lot of really good places. I mean, I just ate at one.
And I was gonna say, what's your favorite?
What's my favorite right now?
Yeah, right now.
That's
We
a
have
tough.
some great ones. We have some great ones.
You, I like to frequent people that have small businesses out here. I don't remember the name of it. It's called Tea something. It's Midtown.
Hmm.
Uh, they have these bowls. It's kind of healthier. Mendocino Farms, really like that place. Probably my favorite is Bach. It's in the Urban Roots family
Oh,
um,
okay.
kitchen and all that stuff. I think Bach represents where I'd always want to eat. Got hip hop when you walk in. It's graffitied up. It's nice. Food's great. Southern cuisine.
Really? Bach? How do you spell it?
EAWK.
Oh, I've never heard of
Right
it.
next to the
Never.
Shady Lady. It's right next to Ace's
Oh.
Burger and Brew. And
Oh, so R Street down there.
yeah, and if I'm gonna spend my money, if I'm gonna spend, $80 on a date or $100 on a date, I'm gonna go there. And it's not fancy, it's just who I am. I think when I walk in there, it's like, oh, there's a comfortability here. Outcast or Tribe Called Quest is playing. I'm ordering my food. I can have a cocktail or just a regular drink.
Mm,
I think it just provides a lot of diversity, and I get to listen to what I like when I'm eating. And that's kind of how I am even when I go out now in Sac. Like I only frequent like one or two different like bars if I do go out. And
mhm.
the Snug is the one because it has the music I want to hear when I'm drinking,
What's it
or
called, Snug? You're putting me up on everything. I was like, I don't
am
know.
I'm not even a socialite. Like I don't do the club anymore or anything like that. But
Yeah.
if I go out to a bar, it's the Snug, and it's just because the music, the ambiance, it's not necessarily the people that are there, but it's the people I go
Mhm.
there with, that
Okay, that makes it better.
make the
Oh,
vibe.
and back to that, like I think the reason you're so successful is because you do have a great support group. Or just if you even that you feel secure and supported in your group, I think that helps you, or that's why you're so well-rounded and so successful in
So the
life.
one thing I can tell you about that is that I don't have any yes men in my clique. There's no yes men in the crew. If you're fucking up, they're gonna tell you. If you're doing great, they're gonna tell
And
you they're
you
proud
need
of you.
that. Yeah,
I'm
you need
forever grateful for that. Like, Charles and I probably spend the majority of, my conversations are with him. Just because one, we live right down the street from one another, but two, we've always had that relationship. And I felt like God did his thing when he introduced me to him in my life. And then the people like yourself who came from that,
Mhm.
relationship. And a lot of people don't understand that is like, you know, I was actually teasing last night, like, Sacramento is it's not a 6 degree of separation city. It's more like
It's like
three.
1.5.
I say three to be fair.
Okay.
And the reason why I say three is because it's like somebody within the third person that you run into is going to know somebody that you do know, especially if you're from here and not necessarily a transplant. Even if you're a transplant, there's going to be somebody you're going to run into that's going to know myself or my boys and the people that we do hang with and things like that. But
And it's wait, real quick, and it's so funny you bring that up because in the second episode of Vince Staples, when the guy comes in and he's like, it's he
Yeah,
knew
when he
they
went to
knew each
jail.
other.
Yeah. Oh
Well,
yeah.
my friend that's from Long Beach, she said Long Beach is so small and the degrees of separation is like that.
Yeah.
So she said that was very Long Beach. And I said, oh, that's how Sacramento is as well. Like we just, everyone. Everyone knows everyone.
Yeah.
And so I just thought that was interesting.
And so I think that there's a lot of to be said about that, right? And it's you can take it as a negative, like a lot of people do. A lot of people sound off on that negativity aspect of it, but I've always used it as a positive.
Yeah.
It's like I never know, and I tell my players this all the time. You just never know who you're going to run into or who you're going to need when the time comes. So don't burn your bridges, right? Like always be upstanding, always be a good character in your actions. And a lot of people don't like truth tellers in a sense, right? Like a lot of people don't like to hear the truth, especially when it comes to your abilities to do something. Like I think that the thing that people most fear working for someone else is that constructive criticism piece or that evaluation piece when it comes down to wanting to get a raise or a promotion and things like that. Now you got to hear what's really bad about you, and that's where I've always kind of felt like I have a separation with a lot of folks is because hey, if you have a constructive piece on me, go ahead and give it to me. That's fine. um, I may be sensitive a little bit. And the reason why I may be sensitive to it is because I know how much I put into it. But
Mhm.
at the end of the day, like when my emotions subside from that, and then I really look at it, right, then I know that I can have potential growth.
Mhm.
And I think that that's a step in the right direction and why these shows matter to me. And I told you earlier in pre-production was those shows matter more to me than sometimes books, right? Because it's you're hitting on something that I've gone through or I am even going through right now in this very moment. And you're teaching me another way to one, cope with it and two, handle it. And there's no one way to skin the cat in anything we do, but it's kind of interesting to see how
Yeah.
like Vince Staples' demeanor in the whole show is just really chill. But I know that that's him because that's how he raps,
Mhm.
right? He's a chill ass dude. He's a dude I could probably sit right side by side, share a drink, you know, chill out, talk, have a good conversation, you know, back in my former life, smoke a blunt with him or chill and just have good vibes. And he's a good dude. And if I ran into him, it's hey, what's up? It's that love. Like, and there's something to be said about that within our culture that I feel is different than any other culture in the world. Is when you have copacetic people like that in your life or just around you and you can run into somebody that gives you that feeling of damn dude that fool made it or damn that dude was hella cool about like I used to play against him now I didn't realize he respected me that much or that he liked the way I played the game or whatever it may be. Man, you're doing your thing. And it's hard because I'm not a guy that likes compliments. Like, I just want to do my job. My biggest job
Yeah.
on the face of this earth is being a dad. And so when I have people who aren't in my inner circle telling me things that's it's humbling, it's very humbling, but sometimes I don't know if my face is showing the gratitude that I really do have for what they've said and the upbringing that I've had because it's different than a lot of other kids that are my color and creed and background, right? I have four parents who all four have cared for all of us for all these years and have tried to
Wow.
teach us all the right things and
Man, your support group sounds awesome. I'm like, that's great.
I pray about it every day. I'm very thankful. I'm very, very thankful on that. And
But it
it's
just shows, like, you could just, I don't know, I could just see it. And I think that's for anybody in life. Like, if you have support, you're going to believe in yourself, you're going to
Mhm,
believe in others, you're going to be your best,
mhm.
you know? So,
It's very biblical, right? It's what your village is, right? And who you've surrounded with and you're gonna be the shining light of the five people that you're around the most, right? And that's an old adage, but it's the truth. Like if I'm around a bunch of, I call them thugaboos, I'm gonna be
Knuckleheads.
I just, but if I'm around articulate, like our crew in a sense is so, and I think it's just the era we came up with and why I value it so much, and why people don't maybe not understand, and this is why I want to do the podcast, is because maybe people don't understand my pride in it is I don't have no dummies in my clique, man. I don't have any dumb dudes. Like, everybody is articulate, everybody's smart, everybody has a degree. These dudes, Daryl, sorry, Daryl Charles and these guys all have degrees and are all doing something outside of their degree, and they're really good at it. They're really talented at it. Like, we actually had a good conversation last week because he was shocked that you and I were doing it because I hadn't told anybody. So like when it got put out, it was like, here's to the world. Like, I'm giving
Right.
you what I've been kind of cooking up in the kitchen in the lab with Stace, and I didn't want to share it until it was a finalized kind
Like
of,
happening. Yeah.
here's the first episode. I want you to see it.
And that's what they tell us to do. Like, a lot of stuff, don't announce your moves, just do it. And I
Yeah.
think there's some
So I
wisdom
felt
in
like
that.
when we just did it, it ended up being a good conversation piece. Um, just how much love he has for you, you know,
Hmm.
and how he viewed you, and he was like, man, she's super creative in her space, like with her pictures or videography, and I want her to do it. And he was telling me about your guys, like 10 years ago, you wanted to do kind of like a cooking red table talk kind of deal. And I was like,
Yeah, like
you can
I
still
was
do it.
ahead a lot of stuff, I'm trying to tell you, but I just, I was always looking for the right people
So
to.
here's the funniest thing about him, and I'm gonna give him his flowers because that's my dude, man. That's my dude and a half. So here's his flowers. This dude is, I remember I had gotten out of real estate, and about 6 months before I started Best Speed originally, he's like, man, you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. This is a conversation we had at his house. And I remember his grandma was when she was still alive,
Mhm.
she was in the den, kind of the breakfast nook area, and his mom was in the living room, and we were in the kitchen eating breakfast after the gym. And that was kind of our daily routine for those 6 months, where I was kind of like, man, I don't know what I want to do. I don't know if I want to go back to school. I don't want to go back in the real estate world. Like, I don't know what I want to do. And I had sold my condo, moved back home to my parents' house. I have two kids. I'm in my early 30s. I just kind of lost a little bit, and here's the tie-in, right? That's kind of what Issa's show was on Insecure. It's like these are high 20s, almost into your 30s. Everybody's single, kind of still doing the same thing, going to the club, going and doing stuff, you know. Um, but that dude, if anybody in my life has ever believed in me other than my parents, my biological family and things like that, it's been Charles.
Wow.
And the fact that he's also done it for you, and I've met you through him, and I've met a plethora of really good friends through him, because he's kind of like, I always tease him. I was like, you're kind of like our oracle, or like our little beacon of light. And I think you said something earlier about, who's healing the healer. And so now in our 40s, I want to be that person to him, because he's always been that person to me. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? So I think that there's so much significance and growth there, that's why these shows really resonate with myself and others.
Mhm.
I believe in those things. I think that they mean something. They're meaningful. They're not just shows. It's like you're showing a lot of
Your
who
life.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I can relate to it, and that's kind of the draw in on it. And I think that if people, even outside of the culture, like that are not black and things like that, can all experience these different things, within their family structure and dynamics of friends and the things that they're doing,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
that's the cool part.
Yeah, for sure.
That's it for me. I mean,
Wow.
I hope everybody does get a chance or an opportunity to check these shows out, right? And
Because
see
I feel
them for
like,
what they. You have to watch them again. But for me, I could watch Insecure right now from start to finish and feel like I just watched it for the first time. You
yeah,
know.
because you get something for each time you watch it. Because
Hmm.
I actually watched the Vince Staples show again, just to, see if I missed anything. And it's good. Like I get it because I watched some of his interviews
Hmm.
and he explained his process of how he created the show. And like I just I get what he did now looking back at it the second time. Like it made more sense. Because at first it was just kind of like it seemed quirky, it seemed fast paced, but now that I know him as an artist or as a creator, like I totally get it. So
Yeah.
everybody should watch it again if they haven't. Um, you know.
And ah,
And
you
I feel
don't.
like Atlanta was definitely kind of like the rags to riches story about an artist and all
Yeah.
the things that they experience. But I think the Vince Staples show was more about a black man or a black experience for
Yeah. And
somebody.
I'm drawn into stuff like that. And I'm gonna give you one more show is Entourage, right? Like that's my
Oh,
go-to. Mark Wahlberg was an absolute cinematic genius with that 30-minute show.
really?
And
A lot of
it's,
people loved it. I'm
oh,
just not a movie person, so that's where I
yeah,
lack.
I loved
But
it. I loved it just because see this dude stop. Okay.
he said it's time to eat.
No, he's being a brat because I'm not paying attention to him. I apologize.
Oh no, you're fine.
Talk
This
about
is
that.
this is real life. This is our
It
life,
is. It
you
is.
know?
It
In the
is. But yeah, I think that if it wasn't for shows like Entourage, that these types of pieces that we're seeing now within our culture and our community, like the Chappelle Show, these groundbreaking shows that allowed the voice of who we deem to be celebrities, right, or who we deem to be the go-tos of our culture, and I would like to say maybe gatekeepers of what our community is in a lot of sense. If those shows didn't have the success that they had, then we wouldn't see these types of shows like the Vince Staples show or Atlanta or Mr. and Mrs. Smith
But I
and have
think they're so, yeah, I think they're so groundbreaking because it's not the typical Black story that gets greenlit in Hollywood. Like, it's not about slavery
oh,
or, you know what I
or
mean?
press like this stuff I sent you this morning. It's like it's crazy to hear all of these things that are going on right now. It's with Diddy and all this other stuff, and that's
Oh, whew.
oof. I mean,
Yeah, I don't know.
yeah, I don't even know what to believe anymore. It's like
Yeah.
if something new comes out, it's kind of like, oh, okay, that's new, and
But he's been extremely silent. So something's going on behind the scenes.
yeah,
And
yeah.
it's all gonna come out. And that's why I'm not rushing to judgment on anything.
Can't you have to let it happen and see what it does? But like,
Because it's
it's a
tied into a lot of people. And this could be the next one of the shows, because whatever happens with him and like some of the things that people are saying out there in the world, it could really mess up a lot of our uh notions or preconceived notions about
we
the
just
our
talked
our
about that
leaders.
boy's baby shower the other day. I mean, I teased him because he had R. Kelly playing, but it's like I had this epiphany as R. Kelly's playing at a baby shower that is
Ooh.
his wife is directly she's from Mexico and
Mm,
her family's here at his mom's house with all of his family from the Bay and Sacramento. And it was just you had three different cultures, uh,
mm.
two different, backgrounds of families, and you had three different kind of collaborative things and they were all there for one thing. But like I'm listening to this song and it's like, man, this dude's canceled, but he made
Yeah.
really fucking good music.
He was like everybody's favorite R&B artist.
Yeah.
And
And it's like
he
hard
was our
because it's like
culture's everything.
I don't want to judge that dude off of his music. Like again, I don't know him personally, And I think that that's where a lot of us get kind of skewed and caught up in the hype on things. But
But
I
he got
always
convicted
agree with it.
though.
Huh?
He got convicted for a lot of the things he's been charged about. That's why for me, it's hard for me to listen to R. Kelly, because of the things that he's done
It
and
is
he's been
difficult.
and the
I
things that he's been convicted of.
Mhm.
Um, so
It's scary
so it's
because
hard to find that thin line between um, the artist, his what he creates in his personal life. It's a fine line, but to me, the way I judge it, it just depends on the level of accusation or what they actually did. It's because it's harder for me to listen to somebody who I know was thinking about little girls or little boys, you know?
for sure, and I'm not taking that out out of sight, but it's just like in that moment, you're sitting at a barbecue, you're eating really good food from two different cultures, and they're fused perfectly. By the way, Jeremiah did a phenomenal job on the menu. Um, but I had that epiphany when the song came on. I'm like, damn, dude, this might be the last time I'm at something like this where I have this feeling of this kind of serenity, kind of auric feeling, euphoric feeling of things are normal, but the dude singing is not normal.
Hmm.
And he's very immoralistic and moralistically bankrupt. But he made great music and it
I
sucks.
know, and yeah, it does suck because he has some songs that are great, but
Yeah.
like that just speaking on Diddy and like some of the names that are floating out there, they are at the top levels of our music hip hop culture. And if anything comes out about them, it's gonna be a big blow. It's gonna be a huge blow.
Yeah. We probably hit on it once everything really does come
I
out,
know.
because again, like I don't
Just
want
what we learned from it, not necessarily the gossipy stuff, but just what,
to.
like what we should take away from it to not end up in those places as
Yeah.
Black men and Black women. So,
Yeah, because
woo!
and that's a whole nother topic too. It's just I wrote about it a couple of years ago. The black athlete. I wrote a piece about it, and I'll share it with you after
Yeah,
I'm
no,
posting.
that'd be great.
But it's hard because a lot of black athletes are revered, cheered, um, at the highest precipice of what they are. We can allude to guys like Kobe Bryant, and things like that, and even Michael Jordan and some of these really Tiger Woods for sure.
Mm.
The top level people, they're iconic and legendary in their field in their endeavors, and they're not really good people,
I know.
or
I was like,
they
personal life in shambles.
yeah, they don't really do good things. But
Bad choices. That's what it comes down to.
I've always believed that with anybody that's great, they're always going to have something, right? Everybody always has something. It's just
Everybody here.
because of the level that they're at, right? The level of fame that they're at, it just gets, yeah, magnified to a whole nother extent. And it's not like the normal day-to-day person that has a transgression against their spouse or certain things of that nature is viewed differently. You just don't hear about it on front page, but there's people right on your street right now that are going through it the same way that they were going through it. It's just not at the caliber at which those people are doing it. Your next door neighbor doesn't have the funds or the portfolio to fly a bunch of women to an island or to his penthouse in New York or whatever it may be to be that sneaky or whatever it is that they're doing. So it's
But
a
y'all
high.
could meet them at the Hilton. No, just kidding.
Yeah. The Comfort Inn or
And
something.
that's what they're doing. But anyways, that's a whole nother
That's
story.
hilarious. But I mean, there's so much to come off of all this. I mean, there's so many
Yeah.
things in this world. Like, I'm really interested right now in to hear this Joe Budden Candace Owens interview
Oh, is that happening? Wow. That'll be great.
2 days ago.
Oh, it happened. Okay.
I'm interested to hear her and hear him, and because he's very emotional, and he's probably one of the most revered pioneers of podcasting outside of his genre, and
Hmm.
bringing forth a lot of truth. And he's been embroiled in, a lot of combat with it, with his truths and his opinions. And um,
Yeah. No, that's great because I feel like more conservatives need to step out of their little conservative circle and speak to other people that are like Joe Budden or, like an Angela Rye or Andrew Gillum or just other people that are very knowledgeable in what's happening and can have a real dialogue. So that's going to be great.
it is. We have
Because
a
she
lot of
said, because
beautiful
she said
topics.
some cool things, but she's just a little different,
Mm-mm, I'm
you
good.
know. She's a little different.
Just passerby in line, like, not even
Yeah.
get the news. But well, I'm interested to see.
Yeah.
Again, I'm interested to see because I do value academia, and I do value people who have that piece, in their resume. Just because I know what it takes to have that, coming from a background of having two majors and two master's degrees and things of that nature, and understanding what education is. And a lot of times people mistake education for being intelligent, or having really good insights or having good OPET pieces. Some people aren't well articulated and spoken. She, on the other hand, is in a sense, but
Yeah, she can
just
articulate.
it's about the wrong things, and it's things that I don't want to necessarily listen to. It's the
Because
same
it's
thing.
her experience. Her
It is her
experience might,
experience. She grew up differently than all of us, and so I'm interested to see where the wheel fall off. That's
yeah, exactly. Like, where did the steering wheel go?
in those black homes. I mean, you can't be that militant, boy. I'll tell you what. You get that belt. You get something. Some auntie would have slapped her up in my family. I know that for
Yeah, like she just
my
talks
aunt really
crazy.
would have had it. So,
Yeah,
but
like that's the thing with those people. Like, just because it didn't happen to you doesn't mean it's not happening to others. And I think
exactly,
that's the part they don't understand in her
you
circle.
hit the nail on the head right there. Exactly, exactly.
It's that simple.
Yep, it is very simple. But that was good, man. I
Yeah,
appreciate you letting me kind of divulge on that because again, I felt
you
like
took the reins on that one.
nah, I wanted to give some flowers. Like I said, whether they hear it or not, I'm a fan. I'm a fan, and I'm a supporter, and I like those types of things. Those are the types of things that I'm really interested in. That's where my free time is spent. Indulging in that kind of world is seeing how creative a rapper is and just how far hip hop has come.
Yeah, we're moguls. They're moguls now, and hip hop has taken people around the world and have made people millions and billions of dollars.
Mhm.
And
It's
it was
amazing.
nothing, it was amazing. And like I didn't know that it was the same person. I didn't know Childish Gambino was
Mhm.
Donald Glover and vice versa.
Yeah.
Like I always thought they were two different people, and
He's
that
an
for
actor
whatever
before he
reason.
was in hip hop. He was on Parks and Recs and some different cameo things on NBC. He had a contract with NBC when he first started, and so it's interesting because my boy EJ always says it. He's like, "Your favorite rapper's an actor," and I'm like, I never really understood what he meant by that until I started kind of diving in deep on certain things in the entertainment industry. So
Yeah, and not many rappers have made it transition well into the acting world.
it's
They
hard.
always try, but there's like Ice
There's
Cube,
groundbreaking guys like Tupac and Ice Cube for sure.
Ice T. Some people have done it.
Ice
Queen
T
Latifah.
40 years. 40 years Ice-T has been at the forefront of not only hip hop but in the entertainment industry on film.
Yeah,
You
Snoop.
He was in the first two break-ins, you know.
Yeah, so very
Crazy.
cool. Very, very cool. Well, we'll keep this conversation going and thank you everyone for listening. Till next time.
All right.
Peace.